That was World War III. Big scrub concert bomb was that?
We used to call that Roman's Hall, put you on the no-fly zone. Couldn't have it.
Okay. All right, so let's finish this tshuva once and for all.
Can you share the screen, please?
Yes, share my screen. Absolutely, Shmuel. Thanks for reminding me. Hold on one second. Okay, so just to get to the bottom line, we've seen that the majority of poskim say that the Rishonim actually say that in the event that a person comes forward, a creditor comes forward with an IOU that was simply signed by the debtor without any witnesses, if the debtor says, "I paid you back," then the creditor is up the creek. He doesn't have any recourse. But the Ramah disagrees. The Ramah says that some say that that is sufficient upon which to collect, and especially because that would be what the government rules would say. The government would recognize an IOU as long as someone signed it, and we can verify that it's his signature, then that would be enough to be able to collect, even if a guy claims that I paid you back. Now, v'hinei b'ni don di done. So this is the final paragraph. So in our case, milavad shadas haramahu de'enu yachol lomar parati keneged ksav yado. He says, besides the fact that the Ramah paskins that a debtor cannot say, I paid you back once he's faced with the IOU, she'ein halo v'neman lomar shekvar shilim lo, that we don't believe the borrower, the debtor, when he says that he already paid. Ela afilu l'das moran shepasa kishlosha samudei hara deneman lomar parati. But even according to the Machaber, remember, this is a Sephardi posek. Normally, he wouldn't go like the Ramah. But he says, even according to the Machaber, who brings the three major Rishonim who hold that a debtor is believed to say, I paid back, mikol makom b'nidon didan. But in our case, kevin shuhu chatam al shtarot shel hamedina, here a person signed on government documents, meaning that I guess what he means, either it's like you go to a stationery store and you can pick up an IOU, or he signed on something that is recognized by the Medina. The kivin shal pichok hamalva yachol litvoet halova be'erkos ulagabos is kol chovo. If the creditor were to take the debtor to court, he would prevail in secular law based on this IOU. Yode maran sheshtar kazeh lo yashir biyad hamalva. So then the argument that the Machaber made is no longer valid. What was the argument that the Machaber made? The reason why we believe a debtor when he says, I paid you, is because he feels that it's such a weak document. And such a weak document, he's not going to remember to ask the creditor to give it back to him when he pays back the debt. He says, but in a situation where the document will be upheld in secular court, a debtor will remember to ask for it back because he knows that if this guy produces this in secular court, he's going to prevail. And it's for that reason he's not believed if he says, I paid you back. And the Ramban writes this in a tshuva explicitly. He says, if you live in a country or a region where a person would not be believed to say, I paid you back in the face of this IOU, pshita dematzi omer leishtarcha biyadi maboy, then obviously a creditor can say, how can you say you paid back when I have this contract in my hands? Da'anan sahadi dekevin de hurmina de malkahu v'ulai apik be'erkos v'lo matzi memer parati lo shavak shtaro biyado de chavre ayin sham. He says, because we can verify or confirm based on our estimation that since the rule of the king is that this IOU note would be enough to award the creditor the money, A debtor would never allow that IOU to remain in the hands of the creditor if he's actually going to pay him back. V'gam l'tam harash shehivenu la'el d'chol ma sheneman lomar paraiti hainu mishum she'en adam nizkar kol kach im nasan l'chaver ksav yado. He says, and even according to the Rush, who says, he's a debtor's not going to even maybe remember that he wrote an IOU because it's such an insignificant document. Ef shalomer dezedavka b'ksav yado ba'alma. But that's only when you don't have a government rule backing up that handwritten IOU. Aval shtar rishmi shemechayv l'chol davar v'inyan kiminidon didan lo shayach lomar ein adam nizka. But over here, it's not. It's much less feasible. It's much less of a believable thing to say that when a guy says, "Oh, I didn't remember I wrote you an IOU." How could you not remember that you wrote an IOU if such a thing carries so much weight in court? The kol shekain shalatayna sanitva hu lo omer shelo zachar mehashtar ela omer shehemanti lo sheliikba al yado pa'amayim de'eno neman. And certainly, if the claim of the debtor is, well, the reason I didn't ask for the IOU back is I never thought that he would ask for a second payment, and that's why I didn't ask for the IOU back. A person is not believed to say that. And so the Makor Baruch just adds, he says, "V'chein pasko halacha l'maisa kama min achronim," and a number of achronim also paskin the same way, and he brings down a number of different citations for this. He says, "Ella sheyesh ladun bazeh, the me'achar shehalo v'toin paraiti, yitztorach hamalva lihishava shvuas heses, af sheyesh lahaminu beikar hatayna b'meshatoin shtarcha b'yadi my boy." He says, would the malva, however, have to take a shvua in order to extract? And the note of Yehuda says that he would be believed even without taking a shvua, and he goes through back and forth the whole thing. And because nowadays we don't take a shvua, Uvechol ofen Omer Rabbeinu Hagona Machaber Shlita Shalamaisa B'nidon Zeh Pasak Shala Nitva L'Shalem Shlish Pachos Mehasikum Shekasu Bishtar Mikamasibos Shayitzarach Lefasher B'neim V'chein Al Pi Achronim Anal. He ends up by saying that Rav Sharaga had paskined in real life situations of this kind, that in the event that the lova claims that he already paid back, he would try to make a pshara to give the lova a third discount on the debt. In a case where a guy produces an IOU which doesn't have witnesses but just has his signature, and if the lova claims that he paid it back.
What was the point of that? That either he did or he didn't. Like,
So-
it's just like our based in here. It's like
Yeah.
a chart, even though one guy owes the money, just make a chart to make everything nice. It's not right. Either yes or no.
He says it's in lieu of the fact that normally we would impose a shavua upon the malva, and nowadays our minhag is not to impose a shvua. See, he writes that in the footnotes. I'm inclined to agree with you, Moish, that this doesn't seem fair to me. You either believe him or you don't believe him. And if you believe him, you should pay him the full amount. And if you don't believe him, so then let the lova off. But this is part of, I guess, the peshara process, and it's in lieu of the shvua that he would normally have to make. So you have a back and forth here. According to the Noda B'Yehuda, the Dayan would be able to award him the full amount. So that seems to be the bottom line. Writing an IOU, signing it, giving it to the creditor makes you bulletproof. Actually, as it turns out, my Choshen Mishpat corner for this week's bulletin basically says that you don't have to do anything more formal than just getting the debtor to write an IOU. And it's actually, we learned in much earlier tshuva in the Baruch Omer, where he talked about this, and he said that even though you want to be a nice guy and lend people money without witnesses and without paper, he says you're actually committing an aveira if you lend people money without paper. What's the aveira? Anyone remember? Yeah, lifnei iver. It's lifnei iver. Do not put a stumbling block before a blind man, which means that if you're basically allowing a person to potentially forget or to deny owing the debt for any number of reasons. A lot of times a person may remember that he owes the money, but he denies it because he's too embarrassed that he doesn't have the money. You know, after all, he's still driving his Lexus or whatever it is, and he's too embarrassed to say that he doesn't have the money. So he says, "What are you talking about? I never borrowed money, or I paid you back, or whatever." He'll come up with something. And by you not demanding paper to be exchanged, you're potentially causing a person to commit a very serious avera. So it's actually your obligation when you lend people money, as much as you trust the guy and as much as he's your friend, to demand, just write me a one-line IOU that I so and so on such and such a date borrowed this amount of money, payable back on such and such a date, signed, and then that's it. And then that would be upholdable in court, Marv?
IOU?
Yeah.
Yeah, IOUs are generally held in court to be clear evidence of acknowledging the debt. So that for sure is clear, but whether you paid it or not, and also, it's also not as strong as a promissory as you wrote, because it doesn't have when the repayment time is, and there's a question of the certainty of terms. So it may not even refer to you, the IOU, maybe it doesn't mention your name, it might be void for uncertainty. So it's.
So you have to try, you have to write the name of the creditor, the name of the debtor, the date of the loan, and the date when it's
There
due.
are cases who say it's not a valid contract, as it's not fulsome enough with the right terms, there's uncertainty of terms, but. The next best argument is it's a clear acknowledgement of the debt, but it doesn't answer definitively whether or not the debt has been paid. So right, that it's been, like, you know, if the creditor presents it and the debtor says, I paid it, then the contest is have you proven that you've paid it since you say you paid it? And you give the opportunity to bring evidence to show payment. Sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't, right? You know. Like,
Well, so if there's no evidence of payment,
then yes. But I think in the halakhas, they don't even let them testify, right? They don't let the borrower testify.
well,
Not
I mean,
believed.
why wouldn't the borrower test? Look, if the borrower can, there are certain exceptions. He didn't discuss this, but the Gemara itself says that there are two ways to manage paper when you pay back a debt. You can either tear up the promissory note, or if both parties agree, you can ask for something called a shovar, which is a receipt. So, right, which is much less convenient for the debtor, because that basically means he's got to hold on to that for the rest of his life, or or until the creditor gives him the promissory note.
This whole question about it's preferable to have paper, but I guess you can see a situation where they're friends and he says, "Oh, come on, we don't need paper, we're friends." Right? So then do you have to explain to him that you might forget, and if you forget, then that could cause you to.
Right. So no, all you have to do is say to a person like that, Jewish law requires me to do the right thing and loan you money, but it also requires me to ask for a piece of paper so that everything is clear and on the table.
Kosher, we need to have this paper.
Right. Now you could also, the other option is, which you're not obligated to do, but let's say you don't want to do paper. Let's say I ask a guy, here, Paul, I need bus fare. Can I have $10 because I'm going all the way downtown? And you say, sure. So do I have to write you an IOU? So you say, Rabbi, if you forget, it's a gift. You're moichel. Yeah. So if it's for small amounts like that, that's the reason why people don't ask for paper, because it's understood that if I'm not going to pay you back, but
plus transportation, I think that's fair.
Gosh, okay. But the bottom line is, though, it's preferable to state that explicitly. Here's the $10 or the $20, and you know what? If you have the money, you can pay me back. If you don't ever pay me back, it's okay. It's a gift.
And then there's no lifnei.
And therefore then there's no lifnei iver. Yeah. Exactly. Because and by the way, a small loan like that, people do forget.
Yeah.
I don't think I've borrowed money from people in the past. I try never to borrow money from anyone. But whenever, if I ever would, it would be with the understanding of that it's a gift. And the same thing when I lend people money, small amounts, because people do forget, you know.
There's a famous saying from Sam Meyer from MGM.
Yeah.
Yes, and he said that an oral contract is not worth the paper it's written on.
Right.
Yeah.
It also stops,
And-
it also stops.
and Mark,
lending money.
free legal advice is
You know,
what you pay
if they're
for.
going, they're not.
It's worth what you
guaranteed
paid
to
for.
Get their money back.
Free legal advice is worth what you pay for.
No, you
So
know,
anything you say
what's the
today.
rate?
That's
You know,
true.
Dallas, if they
We
love
won't
it,
take,
but they're not
yeah.
gonna, they're gonna stop, they're gonna block.
Lucinal Delis Bifnei Lovin,
People
right,
are not
right.
going to wanna lend money if they're not, you know.
If
properly
they don't
covered.
have security, yeah. Well, that's the whole purpose of taking security. You can also, by the way, ask a person for a collateral item. If you don't want paper, you have another option. You can say, give me your Mickey Mantle baseball card that I see you have on your mantelpiece, and I'll hold on to
But
it.
I
And
promise you won't forget.
Right.
yeah,
If he's holding a
That's true.
collateral, it's no better than
That's true.
yeah.
a piece of paper.
Yeah,
No, but
'cause he
there's
values that.
exceptions to the rule, for example, family. It's a little bit strange asking for your kids or your family, you know, for things like that.
It's not at all strange, Ron. It's
It
not at all
teaches a good
strange.
lesson too.
It's actually, you're exactly, you're setting a wonderful example and saying, yeah, I'm happy to lend you the money. Like I lent one of my kids a substantial amount of money. And I said to him, I would like you to pay this back when you start making real money. But in the event that you don't, it's a gift. And I made that very, very clear to him. But let's say you're not prepared to do that. Let's say you feel that this particular child has been squeezing you for multiple times and you want to teach them some level of responsibility. So then you should do paper. And it's and kid or brother-in-law, it's the same thing, you know? Okay. All right. All right. Thank God, all my brothers-in-law are well off, so I don't have to worry about this problem. Yeah. Gizbar vad habayis she'ibeid kesef avad. Here's the next shiloh. The treasurer of the vad habayit. What's the vad habayit?
Communal.
The homeowners association. Yeah, the homeowners association. What's his name? Diamond. Frank Diamond is the head of the homeowners association of the vad.
Barbara Burke is also.
And Barbara, they're the heads of the vad habayit. And by the way, I take personal pride in that because about 3 or 4 years ago during COVID, I used to go to visit on Shabbos afternoon. Karen and I would visit the people in the conservatory just to see how you're doing. And we would go out Shabbos afternoon in the big patio. Oh, and so I was speaking to Monty Coburn and Frank Diamond, and I was saying, so how's it going with the shul, with the party room? Oh, they're giving us problems, and they're you know, the homeowners association is doing this and saying that, and they don't want us to use it every week. I said, 1 second, why aren't you guys the head of the homeowners association? There's more from people in this building than anybody else. Just take it over. And they did. Yeah. So anyway, it's all because of me. Anyway, so Gizbar
Thank you for your efforts.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Shmuel, thank you. Okay. So Gizbar shel vad habayit she'ibed es kaspei vad habayit. So the treasurer of the vad habayit has lost the money that was collected for the by the neighbors, collected from the neighbors. Ha'imhu chayav b'tashlumim. Now does he have to pay it? Is he a liable party? Okay, so here's the tshuva. So kol vad habayit nivchar ba'asifa haklalit shel hadayarim. Every vad bayit is voted in by the residents of the building. Okay, in other words, they have elections. They have a town hall, and they have elections, and they vote in who's going to be the head of the homeowners association. V'hachlatatam nisheret betokef ad lahachlata acheret shel hadayarim. And they remain in power until the next vote. Mi shenivchar liyot hagizbar shel vad habayit. So the person who's the head of the homeowners association and the treasurer, actually, it could be two different people. It could be a president and a treasurer. And whoever's chosen as the treasurer, tafkido lenahel et kol inyanei habinyan behetneim letiknun shesikmu benehem dayarei habinyan. His job is to administrate all matters of the building in a way which is in conformity with the rules that the homeowners themselves have established. In other words, we make the rules. We want there to be this wattage of light in the hallway. We want it to either be is it going to be bright white or yellow light, etc. Yeah, I think that I'd rather commit suicide than be on a homeowners association. Vimlo asu tiknun chayavim linhog al pi halacha. And if they don't make their own rules as far as like what the standards of the building are, then they have to conform to whatever the halacha says in the absence of their, or what the law says in the absence of their making their own standards. V'samchutam lachuf et kol hadayarim lihishtatef b'tashlum v'arabayit hamiyuadim lihishtamesh litzorchei habayit behetem leminhag hamakom o letiknun miyuchad. And they have the authority to coerce all of the residents of the building to pay their, everyone pays an equal amount or however it's assessed. I remember we talked about this before. Do homeowners pay according to the size of their apartment?
I'm not sure.
According to the square footage of their condo? Okay. B'tashlum v'arabayit hamiyuadim lihishtamesh, that those monies will be used for the needs of the building, behetem leminhag hamakom, that which is consistent with whatever the minhag of that place is, or whatever rules, specific rules they make. V'hachlatat rob chaverei vad habayit mechayevet et kol hadayarim. And the vad habayit itself, which is made up of, let's say, a dozen residents, will be they're like the board and they make these decisions. And that's the way it works. So he's just given us a little background on what a homeowners association is. So, okay, Bahashelahi, and by the way, it's not just apartment buildings. In Israel, it's more prevalent apartment buildings, but like these planned communities. I have two sons who live in homeowner association areas in Florida. That's the way they do it down there, where there's rules about when you can put the garbage cans out, by when you have to take them in, what color you're allowed to paint the front of your home, and let's see, what flags you're allowed to put out on your property.
What type of plants?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
What type of plants you can have?
what type of plants you can have, and cleanliness and all of these things. Like you can be inspected by the HPOZ or whatever, comparable thing there is, and it could really make your life miserable if you're not happy. Like I know there've been a number of lawsuits in the United States from people who put up flags and they were too large in size for what the homeowners association said was the requisite size for the flags. And then you'd have these women, these middle-aged women, inspecting and taking, giving notices, and and it's like that's where bureaucracy becomes stupid. Exactly. So, v'hashelahi mahim chiyuvei hagizbor havad she'ibed es kaspei havad b'peshia o ba'ones. So the question is, what is the obligation of the treasurer of the vad if he chas v'shalom loses the money that was collected by the vad for that month, I guess, whether it was done through negligence or whether it was done by accident, a complete accident. So pashut hadavar, she'ima gizbar mekabel schar lavodato otovat hana kolshi. So the first thing is let's ask the question, is he being compensated or not for his efforts? So does that usually happen that they in a building they will pay someone to do this job?
So.
Yeah. Usually a voluntary position, right? So it should seem obvious that if the Gizbar is getting paid for his work, or if he's getting any kind of benefit. So let's say for his services, he gets a discount on paying the homeowners association fee, or he gets the special privilege of using the party room. He gets first dibs on the party room, or
Are we classifying this like as a Shem Sofer, Shem Cleaner, a Shale?
yeah. So that's Dino Kishomer Sachar, Shechayev Bigneva Vaveda. See, he's going to be liable for any loss or theft, right? Vafilu imhu lo mekabel sachar, and even if he's not getting a salary for this, ela shehuskam ben hadayarim shahagizbarut mitchalefet kol chatzi shana uchedome. And let's say for example the residents all agree that every 6 months the treasurer is going to be a different resident. He says, even though he's not getting paid for it, he is like a shomer sachar. Why? Because if each of us has, let's say we're all partners in a business interest, and we take turns doing different jobs, each one of the partners is a shomer sachar vis-a-vis the other partners, because it's as if the rest of the people rely on the one guy who's taking care of the money, and that's his role in the corporation. So that's as if he's getting compensated for that particular role for that particular period of time. Shim ibed kesef mehashut v'shaya b'rshus echad mehen chayev b'achar yuso. So therefore, if there's a bunch of guys who are partners in a corporation and one guy is in charge of watching the money, he's like a shomer sachar for the corporation, and therefore he'd have to pay from his own expenses if he loses the money. And it works like this. If you and I, if two people say, look, today you watch the money and tomorrow I'll watch the money, it's as if or today you watch my things and tomorrow I'll watch your things. There's a quid pro quo. And anytime there's a quid pro quo, the person has a din of a shomer sachar. Okay, so that seems fairly obvious. Okay, and as a matter of fact, the Makor Baruch brings the Shulchan Aruch that says, Shmor li hayom v'shmor lecha lamachar. You watch my stuff today and I'll watch your stuff tomorrow. Hashileni hayom v'ani ilcha lamachar, or lend me your thing today and I'll lend you my thing tomorrow. Shmor li hayom v'ashilecha lamachar, or watch my thing today and I'll lend you something tomorrow. Or hashileni hayom v'shmor lecha lamachar, or lend me today something and I'll watch your thing tomorrow. Kulam nasu shomri sachar zelazeh. Each party is a shomer sachar. Okay, so that's the way it works. Ve'ulam gam b'makom sheyesh gizbar echad kavua ve'eno mitchalef v'hu lo mekabel sachar v'dino kishomer chinam. He says, but however, even in a place where there is a treasurer who's the fixed treasurer for, let's say, an extended period of time, and he doesn't get exchanged out, he's been doing it for 10 years, and he's not getting paid, it's a volunteer position, he's happy to do it because he's retired and he doesn't have anything else to do, and you want to argue like he's like a shomer chinam. Im mutar lo lihishtamesh bekesef litzrachav ha'ishiyim. He says, what happens? The halacha will be like this. What if he collects the money and the residents don't care if he takes the money and goes shopping with it as long as he replaces it? Meaning, like, a lot of times it'll be very casual. We know what monies are supposed to be coming in. So Yankel, you go collect the money, just keep it in your pocket and you'll deposit it at the end of the month and put whatever money you collect, you'll put it in the bank, in the HPOZ account or the homeowner's account, right? So so in that case, Yankel has the right to go ahead and use that money however he wants, as long as he puts a check in the account at the end of the month. So in that case also, harehu chayav kevin sheyesh lo bahem zuchut shimush. Then he is getting benefit from that money potentially, because he could always use it if he's short on cash. And therefore he's also a shomer sacher. K'moshe nifsak lahalacha b'shulchan aruch, hamafkid maos eitzel shulchani, that the Shulchan Aruch says that if a person leaves money for safekeeping in the hands of a money changer, maos shehem lo chasumim usagurim, muter lo lihishtamesh. Whoops, I need the new packet. He's allowed, the shulchani, the money changer, is allowed to use that. So today our money changers are the bank. So if I leave money in the bank for safekeeping, the bank is a shomer sacher, because the bank has the right to use my money as they wish, right? So let me get the next. It's time already. Okay, so Mirza Hashem, we will continue this next week, and have a wonderful Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.